Well, what do I know about politics? I know enough about modern day politics to realize that it's not working here in the UK. Hence, the solution is in the title, reform. Political reform is definitely needed. And it doesn't take the brains of Elon Musk to realize that. What do I know? Now, I do know about national security. I do know about safety. I do know about personal safety. I do know about community. I do know about team.
Keir Starmer just got verbally crushed into another realm by none other than ex-SAS powerhouse Ant Middleton. And trust me, this was no meditation retreat. Imagine a tactical takedown so ruthless that Starmer's tie nearly begged for protection. From weak leadership talk to political emptiness, Ant went all in. And what you're about to see is a demolition so fierce it could have its own MI5 report. Buckle up, because this is the roast Starmer never prepared for. Let's dive into the chaos.
Today we publish a white paper on immigration, a strategy absolutely central to my plan for change that will finally take back control of our borders. Between 2019 and 2023, net migration quadrupled until in 2023, it reached nearly 1 million. That's about the population of Birmingham, our second largest city. That's not control, it's chaos. A one-nation experiment in open...
Somewhere in the world of tactical drills, high-altitude training, and men crawling through barbed wire for entertainment, Ant Middleton, ex-Special Forces, full-time boot camp commander, and part-time crusher of fragile egos, took one look at Keir Starmer and thought, you know what? Britain's had enough of weak leadership, because there's one thing that keeps Ant up at night, and it's not gunfire or jungle combat. It's politicians who make damp cardboard look confident.
I leave that to the politicians. But listen, what I do know is national security, and that's what we're going to touch on very first and foremost. Now, when I spoke to Nigel and the wider team a couple of years ago, for those that don't know, I do a TV show called SAS, Who Dares Win, where I bring in broken people and I strip them down so they can identify who they are, so they have an identity, and then I build them back up to go out into the world and to achieve. And I got asked a question by Nigel and his wider team saying, could you do that with a broken country? How do you do that? And we went through how I broke people.
Now, Ant Middleton rarely steps into politics unless it's to deliver a verbal takedown. But when someone like Starmer tries to lead with the conviction of a weather vane in a storm, you can practically sense Ant's soldier instincts react. The man has spent his life conquering real mountains. Seeing Starmer must have felt like stumbling over a tiny bump called policy confusion.
I'm not going to avoid any taxes. I'm going to come away from the way that he runs the country. He's got no ambition, he's got no drive, and he's just off-putting. I'm going to spend my time between Dubai and Spain. You know, I'm not going there to try and save money. I won't have an income coming from the UK, so you know I don't need to be here. And
what is it about? But Labour have only been in for I think 2 months. So what have they done so catastrophically wrong?
Well, you talk about the next budget of what they're going to start rising.
Let's begin with the obvious. Ant Middleton is built like a tank powered by fury and discipline. He's trained to make split-second choices that can mean life or death. Keir Starmer, on the other hand, once needed 3 weeks and a panel of advisors just to decide whether the Labour logo should tilt slightly left. The difference isn't even close. One was forged in fire. The other is mildly heated by focus group-tested microwaves.
Lost my identity. I got confused. When you have a nation of confused people, guess what happens after? Frustration. You get frustrated. Like the individual, very much like the individual. What happens after frustration? Anger. Anger, violence. Violence. What's happening on our streets right now? Violence. Or it teeters into civil unrest, which we want to avoid at all costs. But it's coming.
You see, Ant lives in a world where hesitation can cost your life. Starmer lives in one where hesitation earns you a BBC segment. Ant leads with instinct, grit, and steel. Starmer leads with notes, panels, and polite apologies. Ant's version of a campaign is hauling a log uphill. Starmer's version of struggle is misplacing his reusable coffee cup. There's something poetic about watching Ant Middleton metaphorically slam Starmer's leadership style. While Ant molds recruits by shouting until they toughen up or tear up, Starmer guides Labour MPs by gently suggesting they might consider possibly adjusting a stance, if everyone's okay with it and no one's upset. Starmer's leadership has been a masterclass in caution, the kind of caution that makes safety officers look reckless. While Ant says adapt, overcome, survive, Starmer says wait, discuss, and maybe issue a careful memo. Now picture this, Ant reviewing Starmer's record like a drill sergeant inspecting gear. He doesn't see a plan, he sees a mountain of maybes, possibles, and let's revisit. Every time Starmer dodges a straight answer, Ant adds another rep to his deadlift, powered by rage and the need to personally drag the Labour leader through an obstacle course.
I think we live in an island of strangers.
I think our country has benefited over very many years through generations from people coming to the UK, being part of our communities and working in our public services. But I also think that the level of migration needs to be controlled and managed, and it needs to come down.
So we are living in partial island of strangers then?
Well, I think we're a country that I think has a really strong country.
Are we or are we not an island of strangers, do you think?
No, I think we're a country where everybody, I think, wants to see.
Because let's be honest, Ant's version of accountability is yelling straight into your soul until you remember how to function. Starmer's version is creating a committee to explore the possibility of future apologies. If Starmer ever joined one of Ant's missions, he wouldn't make it past the pep talk. He'd be double-checking risk assessments while everyone else parachutes into danger. And don't get it wrong, this isn't about politics, it's about action. Middleton doesn't care if your ideas are left, right, or orbiting Saturn, as long as you can decide before the universe implodes. Starmer? The man could be handed a perfect opportunity and still ask if it's the right time to act, after verifying with the admin team. Now picture the roles flipped, Ant Middleton leading the Labour Party. Yes, just imagine that. Party conferences start with a 10K uphill run in freezing rain. Manifestos are etched into stone slabs and dropped by drone. Shadow cabinet meetings, held in abandoned bunkers, no heating, just grit and determination.
I don't think that the Russians are going in there and having an easy time, because they're certainly not. I know people who are on the ground in Ukraine, and they're quite happy at the moment, actually, because they're actually holding them. They think they can genuinely beat them.
But Putin can be in this for the long term. We've seen his track record in these situations. He might be doing this for years.
The guy's unstable. It's clear to see. When I saw his first interview with Putin, I saw how unstable he was, and I thought to myself, wow, this guy's got potential to do something crazy.
Suddenly, the energy within Labour shifts. People stop wondering what they believe and start worrying about what Ant believes. Policies roll out like military strategies. No more statements stuffed with maybes and conditions. It's all do this, or leave. The media wouldn't even bother with tough questions. They'd just jot notes and pray he doesn't lock eyes with them. Now compare that to Labour's current mood. You've got Starmer, a man who handles leadership like he's hosting a dinner party for strangers. It's all polite smiles and careful dodges. He's not leading a movement. He's trying not to upset an Excel sheet. And somehow that's meant to inspire a country. Let's talk about policy, not the substance, the delivery. Ant Middleton delivers like a knockout punch. Starmer delivers like a delayed parcel. Ant says exactly what he means, then scales a rope to prove it. Starmer says what he might mean depending on polls, then quietly retracts it over a long weekend. It's almost painful. Britain's stumbling through one crisis after another, and the opposition leader is playing hide-and-seek with opinions. Energy crisis? Starmer's got a document. Cost of living? He's got a committee. National strikes. Of course, he's got a task group thinking about possibly visiting a picket line one day if it's safe and the optics work.
And then I got a phone call from my agency saying, Ant, your whole world's about to turn upside down in about 45 minutes to an hour. I said, what do you mean? And then that 45 minutes an hour came around. The Sun, the Mirror, the Daily Mail, all had these in-place, promptu sort of articles coming out. Ant Middleton's been fired by Channel 4. Ant Middleton, fired because of BLM tweet. Ant Middleton fired because of teen tweet, pandemic tweet. That's what it's all about.
And while Starmer hesitates, Ant stares at him like he's the living form of a broken compass. This isn't even a showdown. It's a full-blown mugging. One man strides onto the battlefield, The other steps into a boardroom and checks for allergens. You can almost hear Ant shouting through the nation's consciousness. Get a grip. Of course, Ant's not actually joining any party. That'd be too easy. He's not here to play politics. He's here to crush the notion that leadership must be timid, watered down, and poll-approved. He's the grenade hurled at the dull fortress of political correctness. And Starmer? He's still inside, drafting a memo about safety procedures for grenade use. The symbolism is perfect. On one side, a man who's crossed deserts, scaled frozen peaks, and faced real enemies. On the other, a man who once boldly issued a slightly firm press release about potholes. Middleton's rule is simple. If it's not useful, it's an obstacle. Starmer's rule is more nuanced, which basically means he's unavailable for comment. You almost have to admire the imbalance. One commands attention through sheer force, the other disappears into the wallpaper through pure caution. If charisma were ammunition, Ant's locked, loaded, and ready, while Starmer's still searching for the instruction manual.
You'd have asked me, 12 months, 2 years ago perhaps, about Keir Starmer. Remember, I've been a Labour MP. I've met Keir a couple of times, and I've chatted with him, etc. And I would have said 2 years ago, fairly decent guy, bit to the left for me, but not a bad guy. But now, having seen what's happened since he came to power, I have never been more disappointed. And for him to use the word principles, I think is rich coming from Keir Starmer. I mean, the hypocrisy from all of this, we had to listen to.
Middleton doesn't just mock Starmer. He tears apart the entire idea of cautious, consultant-approved, PR-polished leadership. This isn't a critique. It's a controlled explosion. The message? Britain doesn't need another poll-tested automaton with a bar chart. It needs someone with a spine, someone willing to lead from the front. Middleton wouldn't pause to decide. He'd walk straight up to the problem, stare it down, and dare it to move. Starmer, meanwhile, would likely draft a concerned letter and wait for it to be reviewed. It's the gap between taking action and endlessly revising it into nothing. Even their appearances say it all. Ant arrives in boots, scars, and a glare that warns, "Don't try me." Starmer shows up in a suit so tight it probably includes a disclaimer about media scrutiny. One looks like he's survived a war zone. The other looks like he's waiting for his appointment. And the public? They notice. Voters aren't fools. They see the contrast. One commands the room, the other carefully negotiates for it. One could lead a charge, the other might chair a discussion. If you were lost in the wilderness, you'd want Middleton. If you were lost in Excel, maybe Starmer. Middleton doesn't just expose Starmer. He exposes a culture of political timidity that's infected leadership itself. A generation of politicians terrified of boldness, content to fail slowly rather than risk decisively. In that light, Ant isn't a critic. He's the cure, a tattooed antidote to hesitation.
Boris Johnson had more of a quite a Johnsonian response. He did quite a long post on X, but I think the most intriguing part of that was, "To take care is the orange ball chewing manacled gimp of Brussels."
The orange ball chewing?
Orange ball chewing manacled gimp of Brussels is how he described Keir Starmer. He said, most bizarrely of all, he's agreed that Britain will once again be paying countless millions of pounds into EU coffers for the privilege of becoming the non-voting punk of the EU Commission.
It's a great sentence. You've got to give it to him.
He's got away with...
He's gotten away with it. Ant bursts into Starmer's office. Well, bursts might be too kind. He arrives like a thunderclap in tactical boots, and the room, usually radiating the dull panic of a beige spreadsheet, instantly gives up. Ant doesn't speak at first. He scans the whiteboard, Starmer's grand strategy, filled with notes like consult unions and reassess position on reassessing positions. His stare alone erases 3 bullet points and makes the whiteboard marker crumble in embarrassment. He picks up a labor policy pamphlet like it's contaminated, sniffs it, then declares it fit for firewood. Moments later, it's burning on a makeshift campfire Ant builds right there, using 3 pencils, a stress ball, and Starmer's credibility. The smoke alarm wails. Starmer's staff whisper, "Same." Then Ant delivers the deadly phrase, "Man up." Instantly, Starmer's PR team slides down the corridor in full-blown code red. HR scrambles to write a 12-page apology tweet. A junior staffer faints by the recycling bin, which, ironically, has more backbone than the shadow cabinet. unbothered, Ant declares it's time for training. No mud, no obstacle course, and just 24 hours on Twitter. No blocking, no muting, only pure exposure to the British public. The outcome is disastrous. By hour 6, one aide tries to draft a bill outlawing memes. By hour 10, another is curled up next to the notification bell, whispering ratioed like a ghost story. By the end, half the staff defect to the Lib Dems. The rest quietly update their pronouns to done with it.
Get abused on a regular basis, and I see it on a regular basis, and it infuriates me.
And you have that split second of, am I going to act? Am I not going to act? And that delay is what people see.
Does politics influence the police force?
That's a really good question. I'm just a lowly DS, you know,
yeah,
and CID.
Listen, you can't hide here, Mark. Come on, I know you know more.
The media it makes the police and it breaks the police.
Yes, there's going to be bad apples. There always is in any organisation. Yes, we're going to make mistakes. We're only human.
People see that tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
People only see the surface. And Starmer? He tries to clap back, launching a counter-strike. But somewhere between, I fundamentally disagree, and I appreciate your perspective, he accidentally agrees with Ant and suggests mandatory boxing lessons for the shadow cabinet. Meanwhile, the country burns, metaphorically and sometimes literally. Cost of living? Through the roof. Public morale? Somewhere near the Earth's crust. Voters want a fighter, not a flowchart. And what does Starmer deliver? Nuance, caution, and a lengthy review panel chaired by a man named Nigel, who once managed a sandwich shop. Ant's rule, strike first, adjust later, never apologize. Starmer's rule, draft a position paper, test it in 5 constituencies, then post it as a blog nobody reads. Britain's in a storm, and Keir's still searching for his umbrella receipt. If Labour rebrands under him, the slogan practically writes itself. Labour, maybe. Eventually, possibly. It'll be printed on beige mugs, sold at low-energy fundraisers serving lukewarm falafel and soft jazz. Ant, meanwhile, is out there shaping steel from teenagers with anxiety and burned-out bankers in crisis. He builds leaders. Starmer builds committees. Middleton creates warriors. Starmer creates waffles. And when you place them side by side, there's no contest. Ant Middleton leads. He commands rooms like a war drum wrapped in barbed wire. People follow or they get left behind. Keir Starmer speaks, and people tune out faster than a soggy Greg's pasty cools.
Ask yourself 2 questions. 1, does he have that capability? And 2, has he got the minerals? Has he got the balls to use that capability? I'd say no.
And third, I would
I'm
say,
seeing.
what would be his motivation to start a war that would lead to the immediate destruction of himself and his own country?
It would be the next World War III. Basically, what he's done, he's gone into Ukraine. They're amazing people. Their fighting force is holding the fort.
If Britain were a survival mission, Ant would already be halfway up Ben Nevis with a pack of badgers and a handmade spear. Starmer, meanwhile, would still be in reception, asking if it's too late to postpone the climb, and whether there's a vegan option. This isn't just a comparison. It's a demolition. One's a soldier of action, the other's a solicitor of hesitation. One leads from the front. The other follows from the rear, unsure which way they're even going. In the battlefield of British politics, Keir Starmer has been outthought, outmuscled, and outshined by a man who literally fights nature and wins. The toughest thing Starmer's ever battled is whether to back a strike, and he lost that too. Ant didn't just dismantle Starmer. He extracted the myth of his leadership, hurled it into the Thames, and left behind a warning, and maybe a scorched whiteboard. The mockery lives in the energy. Ant walks into the metaphorical arena, and Starmer instantly fades behind the curtain of, "We're working on it." While Ant attacks mediocrity head-on, Starmer somehow turns "maybe later" into a slogan. It's leadership by hesitation, leadership by ellipsis. And this isn't just about toughness, it's about clarity, direction, and intent. Ant Middleton might not carry a manifesto, but he carries a message. Act, move, grow, improve. Starmer, bless him, is still waiting for the printer to warm up. This isn't a duel, it's a dismantling. There's no need for Starmer to respond because Middleton's attack isn't personal, It's purposeful. It's not about one man, it's about an entire model. And that model is broken, cautious, slow, and wrapped in layers of PR bubble wrap.